with just fans, you know. I'm going to have to dress really warm in the winter if I want to pull that off. And it may not work out. But I do little experiments like that. And so what I'm going to talk about today are little experiments that I've been up to at the home scale. And we've got several different things that, like themes, that we'll try to cover, and several different like activities. So this is the Zone 0 thing. We're going to talk a little bit about the concept of epigenetics, because it's something that Robert and I have been talking about lately. We're going to talk about food preparation, things that are efficient for that. We're going to talk about composting. A little bit off of the food preparation is I have a spur on learning, like different ways to learn. Houses are great places to learn in. And in future directions, things that we can talk a little bit about sort of where the permaculture group is going and different ideas that we have for that, and the design course and stuff like that. So this is just stuff that we'll start with, and just so that you can see better, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to empty this thing. So this is dandelion greens and kale and chard that I just hung in this thing. And what's brilliant about El Paso is just the air itself is the ultimate environment for dehydration of things. Like, it's really interesting. I did an experiment with this where I took pieces of these vegetables to Houston with me on a business trip, and by the time I got there, they were like paper. Like, you couldn't eat them anymore. They were like, they had to absorb some of the water again. But in El Paso, just indefinitely, they maintain this crispness and they won't rot. It's amazing. So what I'm going to do is I'll put these in a little bowl, and then we'll munch on some of them if you want them. And what I did is I hung this on my porch for one day, and in June in El Paso, that's enough to just to completely dry anything. But in a regular climate, like if it's cooler, I would say I have to hang this stuff for a full 3 days, I would say, to get it completely dry. And also, there's a couple of things to keep in mind anytime you dehydrate things. Number one, I would say, from a nutrition standpoint, be careful what you dehydrate, because we all love dehydrating like sugary things, but it's possible to like eat yourself into diabetes by eating dehydrated fruit, because it is so concentrated. Like, I can eat 10 apples at a time because the apples like shrink down to like that, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I just ate too much sugar. So I try to focus on dehydrating things that are going to be more mild, so like zucchini, greens, and go ahead with the apples, but just be careful, when you dehydrate stuff like that, because
do you flavor them?
I've sprinkled cinnamon on the apples. That can be good, but I don't. I find that dehydrated vegetables are so vegetables have so much salt in them, but we don't taste it because it's diluted by the water. You remove the water, and it literally feels like you're eating a potato chip. Pass that around and have some. And go ahead and pick through there. There's different kinds of vegetables in there. But you'll taste, like, it is super either bitter or sour or salty. And I'm of the opinion that always fresh is better than any sort of processed, but this is wonderful for me to take on like business trips, or to have as a snack, that sort of thing. So they're pretty strong tasting, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
They're pretty strong tasting.
Dandelion's pretty bitter.
Yeah, the dandelion is bitter. But this is, like, over and over today, you'll see examples of what we call appropriate technology, and this is one of them. This is called the food pantry, P-A-N-T-R-I-E. And this, I think I got this for like $60 on Amazon.com. Just type in food pantry, dehydrator, or something like that. But it's pretty cool. And it's something that in El Paso we can take advantage of. In other parts of the country, they really can't deal with this very well. But they store pretty easily. Just sort of, they become like a little cartridge. You just put these away like this. And I've done apples, I've done pears, I've done zucchini, dandelion, kale, chard, oranges. Pretty much anything that you want to dehydrate, you can. Tomatoes are really good, dried tomatoes.
How long do the tomatoes take?
Do they stay after they're dried, you mean?
No, how long do they take to dehydrate?
It all depends on the width. So if you do really fat tomato slices, you'll want them in the sun for like 2 days. If you do very thin slices, you can get them done in a day. And I recommend doing that because usually what happens the first night is mold will start to grow if there's excessive moisture. So whenever I dehydrate, I slice them like 6 in the morning, get them straight into the sun, and then hope that by the time the evening comes, most of the water's been drawn out. Good question. Yes, of course. Anybody else would like water, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, I'm good.
I'm going to have you hold on to these glasses because we're going to sample many different things today. Who else wants water? Anyone? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Well, let's talk about water. This is something that has been a challenge for me. I'm always in search of ways of not having toxic water, because there's a lot of stuff in the water today. And what I'll show you is the system that I don't think is the best, but it is affordable, and it's something that I have experimented with and am happy enough with. So, basically, with water, there's a couple things we have to worry about. There's different sort of pollutants that are in the water today, and part of it's just because of industrial, like the pipes. But there's even like weird stuff that, like estrogens and things, like from all the birth control pills that everybody takes and all that stuff. It all gets into the water, and it's come on in. And so here's what I've done water-wise. You want a dehydrated bit? Oh, and there's an open seat up here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, would you like some water also, Keith?
I'm okay for now.
Okay, just yell when you want some.
You guys want to tall? Do you want to sit in front? Shoulders.
Yeah.
Back.
Yeah. So
my back doesn't look great.
So here's what I do for water filtration: is I have what's called an Aquasana filter on the sink, and they look like this, and it runs it through a filter. The reason I don't want a whole lot of sink water is the fluoride. Like there's some indication that that's really a bad idea, and I think people in the future are going to look at us like we're idiots for doing that. But right now, the water's still fluoridated, and so what I try to do. But I also think it's dangerous to drink like distilled water or water that's had too many of its minerals removed. So what I do is this: I fill these cylinders 1/3 full of the Aquasana filtered water from the sink, and then I let it sit open for a day to get the chlorine out of it.
Is that all it takes?
It's about, it depends on how much water and how much surface area, but I think, I don't taste any chlorine anyway after a day. And then 2/3 of this is reverse osmosis, 5-gallon things that I fill up at Sprouts or any of those, Albertsons. And the 5-gallon things, they probably have BPA in them just because it's a plastic jug, but I'm only getting 2/3 of it. And the water there has fluoride in it, but I'm only getting 1/3 of it. And so I hedge my bad bets, I guess, is what you would say, in terms of water. And I sort of follow the naturopathic recommendation that you should probably drink about half your body weight in ounces per day of water. And if you're doing athletics or if it's the summer, you want some more. If it's the winter, maybe you don't need that much. But I weigh 160, so I should be drinking 80 ounces. And each one of these is about 32 ounces. It's a liter. So I drink a little more than 2 of these things.
And an indication that you don't have enough water is the urine is really, really dark yellow. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an indicator.
Okay.
Also, if you just experiment with different amounts of hydration, you'll find over time that you feel like you're overwatered or underwatered. Another thing that I'll mention about water as we discuss nutrition stuff is it's generally recommended by people who are like naturopathic practitioners that you don't drink water with a meal because you don't want to dilute the stomach acid that is meant to really eat up all the protein that's in your stomach. So I'll drink a big tall glass of water or 2 30 minutes or an hour before I eat just to hydrate myself. But then by the time I eat, I want my stomach nice and small and acidic, and then I'll eat that. And then I will wait a good 2 or even 3 hours afterwards. Once I feel like the food's no longer in my stomach, at that point I'll start drinking water again. So I alternate my food and water, food, water, food, and water. And for me, I was telling David earlier, the reason I got interested in all this stuff is I got really sick in 2007, and it pertained to some issues, I guess what you call autoimmunity. I'm allergic to most things, and I started getting really, really thin. I mean, I look sort of thin now. I was 137 pounds, and I was desperate. So I started turning my biological knowledge and interest into researching how to get better. And so this is where I discovered a lot of this, what I'd call internal or zone 0 permaculture type stuff. So that's what I know about water is you definitely want to have water that's as clean as possible, and you definitely want to have enough of it, and you definitely want to have it alternating with your food so that you're not diluting your stomach's power to digest things.
And you can intake more food when you don't drink, while you're eating, right? Well,
yeah.
Somebody who has a fast metabolism,
yeah.
like me,
yeah.
that's kind of my
true.
problem, because I'll eat small, but then I'll drink, and I won't be able to finish my meals.
Right. Yeah.
So you're not drinking while I'm eating.
So I wouldn't eat a meal without being hydrated first.
Right.
So I really would drink, a good amount of water an hour or 30 minutes before, just so that you've got plenty of your blood plasma is very dilute and all that, because you're not going to drink again for the next 3 hours probably. And especially if you, go ahead.
A good way to mineralize your water is brown rice. Just putting a teaspoon of brown rice in it.
Okay.
And it'll put a nice current in your water. Really good minerals.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard about that.
Just a pinch of it or something.
Yeah, a little small teaspoon. And it's pennies on the dollar.
And do you leave it in there, or you just stir it and then drink it right away?
No, just let it sit for
Just
a
let it
while.
sit?
And
Okay.
Stir it in there.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea, because there are vegetables, and I actually would imagine you could do that with most vegetables.
Fruits, vegetables.
Yeah. They all have minerals in them. Plants are sort of like mineral extraction machines from the soil. So
Because a lot of times when we're just drinking water from the tap, or it's depleting minerals. It's grabbing on.
I can feel it now. I've been on the 5-gallon filtered water long enough that as soon as I drink tap water, I can as it's going down, I can feel it pulling water away from me because it's got more concentrate than maybe my cells do. I can feel myself being dehydrated by the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, straight out.